my friends. Welcome to Yubu Podcast, the show on what it means to know, love, and lead yourself. I'm your host, Stephanie Sauvé-Bogue from Moonwild Studio, and I am sitting here with my good friend, Ellen Picken, and we are in this magical garden. As you can see if you're watching the video, we are sitting in the atrium garden backyard of Lowell Ryan Projects Art Studio in Los Angeles. And so this is another pop-up pod that I'm taking on the road with me. And I'm so grateful to be sitting here with my friend Ellen, who has her art just inside. And we just had the most amazing opening on Saturday night. And it's Monday morning now. And I thought, what a fun opportunity it would be to get a little insight from this incredible artist about what it means to stay true to yourself and to kind of design your life around who you are and what you love and go all in on that brave dream. And so for those of you that have been listening to the show, you know that the show is all about the power of being authentic to ourselves and what it means to even know yourself and then to actually honor that with your life choices and design your life around being authentic. And sometimes that means doing the bold, brave thing, going against the grain, taking a leap of faith, and trusting yourself and other people and pursuing the vision you have. So I'm so inspired by just, for one thing, knowing Ellen as a person. She's so kind and authentic and loving and real and down to earth. And yet her art is otherworldly and feels really big. So yeah, I just feel really lucky to have the opportunity to talk to her today about some of what it means to do this, to choose to pursue a dream and to take it all the way to Los Angeles from Spokane, where we both live right now. I think a lot of times in my life, doing that could feel a bit like a fantasy. I was an artist. I still am an artist, but I've been making art for many years. And to think of having a gallery in LA represent me would seem kind of like a fantasy. But now that I'm here with Ellen, I'm like, why though? It actually feels just right and feels like a very obvious next step for her. So I'm curious to just find a little out about that. And so I guess before we dive into any of that, it would probably be good for people to know who you are. And I know that's a huge question. So I'll let you start where you want, but just a little how you would introduce yourself to our audience today.
I had somebody ask me once, oh, hey, everybody. I had somebody ask me once, when did I come into the world? And you can't really say when you came into the world. But I was born a week after Mount St. Helens erupted. So that kind of feels appropriate. It's a mountain in our state that I've always had an affinity to. And I think that was actually when I was probably born. But I live in Spokane, and I've lived in the Pacific Northwest for my whole life and traveled around, but I've made art since the beginning, and it's a path that I've continued on for the whole time.
Thank you. So Ellen, a lot of people know her as a muralist. She's a tiny human like me. We're both about 5 feet tall. I think I'm 5 feet tall. And when you see the size of her work, it's colossal. And a lot of people know her for her mural work. And at some point in recent years, she decided to kind of change her focus to start creating in a smaller scale. And I'm curious to hear what inspired you to. We've talked about this a little bit, but I'm curious how you knew, I guess, that it was time to focus on creating pieces that were meant to be seen indoors, inside a gallery space.
Oh, that is a good question. I've been doing murals for about 10 years, and I started when I was 34 doing murals. And before that, I had been doing studio paintings. And the murals have been just an incredible experience. And they started off big. I didn't go from small to large. They always had been big. And so in my 30s, physically, that was great. I could do everything. And there's always a lot of community experience in creating public art. So it felt good from the beginning to bring something beautiful to everybody who walked by. And as the years go by, 10 years is a long time, and the body changes and the scale kept getting bigger and bigger. So, and my clients also started getting bigger and bigger, and I'm grateful for them. And I wish I'd started when I was 20. But so as my body's starting to physically change, also the thing that always has been with me from the beginning is a connection with my inner self, and probably a spiritual connection with nature. And working on that grand of a scale in the urban settings kind of changes that relationship. And the more I was working on the murals, the less time I had to work in the studio. So luckily for me, my knees start hurting, and that was a sign just to come back to that centered place. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about how what we're physically capable of in any given moment can shape our career, and the way that we can use our vision and our craft and our gift and our skill set can take on a different shape depending on a lot of factors: our resources, who we know, how our body feels, what we're capable of in that moment. And something has struck a chord with me in just being your friend and witnessing you as an artist. And you mentioned it just now about your own spiritual connection to your inner self and to nature as well. And this obviously, for people who know me, know that that's a huge part of my life and my work. And a lot of what I'm doing with my clients is this inner work of self. And there's this perception, I feel like often in the world, that just a certain type of person is doing meditation, or just a certain type of person is talking about this innate connection to themselves and to nature. It kind of gets defined as this certain way of being in the world, where that's a huge part of your identity if you do that or not, or if you talk about that or not. And something I'm really interested in is that people wouldn't necessarily know that about you, or unless they've had the opportunity to really talk to you about the experiences you've had. One of the things we talked about on this trip was the Vipassana meditation retreat that you've done. Well, I'll let you tell me more about how many times you've done it and ways you've been involved, but it is such a testament to the power of being able to have access to that deep quiet of yourself. and how then that can create such a meaningful outward expression, which we see in your work. Because standing in front of Ellen's work that is just inside over here, there's no written titles, there's no information, you just stand in front of the piece and it speaks to you. And I had a lot of deep feels standing in front of her work, and it's abstract and you don't really know what it's about, but it evokes this feeling that feels to me very human and also ethereal at the same time. And so to me, the work feels innately spiritual, even if you don't know what it's about, and very human. And so I guess I'm curious, how does your practice of, I guess, meditation or anything else that you do to connect to that part of yourself, how does that influence your work as an artist?
That's a really good question. Thank you for describing that in that way. It feels good to have somebody feel when they stand in front of the work. There's a lot of talk about connecting with the self. I even just said it earlier, but it is not so much the self that I'm connecting with. In fact, that gets in the way of things when I think about who I am. And it's in my meditation experiences, it's those times when that sense of self is actually totally dissolved or sitting to the side. And I lived in a small town of about 800 people for 10 years. And over time, I realized that I am not Ellen. There's no Ellen to put your finger on. It is the people that I'm around and the environment that I'm in. And I also create the people that I'm around. Cliff and Judy and Steve and Deb and Bob and Jane, everybody became a community rather than we were individuals, but we weren't. And that's how I feel just in the general environment and in the world with people. I try to be with the people that I'm with and be aware of the surroundings and aware of how that is shaping my own behavior, how I'm listening to things. And then the dreams that I have, I understand that it's the experiences that I've had through going through life that inform the symbols, like the outward visual symbols, but the meanings of those symbols come from something that is not me. And that the more I try to make something happen, the more I try to say, this is my idea, the less true it is. And so actually is less about the self and less about being whatever is authentic than putting all of that aside and just listening. So that's what I really try to do. And then I do my best to interpret that. So, and then anybody has access to that space. But the individual is the one who chooses to do it. I guess the ego is something that helps you do the thing, but the ego can't be the one that says, I did it, Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense. But.
Oh, I love it so much. And it's interesting because everything you just described is, to me, a beautiful version of authenticity and what it means to be honest about what this experience is. Because to be able to tap into that feeling of being a drop in the ocean of the all, of the everything, and to realize that Kathy Heller says a somebody suit. She's like, if you can remove the somebody suit and tap into the source, you are a conduit for the idea. And we had this long conversation on this trip. We've had a lot of hours of just sitting around the kitchen, drinking coffee, and talking about life and work and these ideas of what does it even mean to have an idea? And this idea of, instead of forcing it from an ego place and thinking that it's ours, it's more of an allowing and an opening up to be a conduit or a channel. And then you get to be the alchemist. You get to take this wisdom that is actually out here in the collective wisdom and awareness that actually it is beyond time and space, in a sense. Like, you can tap into what's ancient and what's coming and interpret it through your own unique lens, and that's what makes it unique. Even though, you know, you are a very communal person and a very collective minded person, which is really beautiful. Ellen is one of the most humble and loving and just really aware of being a part of a bigger idea and a bigger collective, which feels very different than the way that a lot of culture is in terms of where it's moving. There's this very like beautiful sense of community that you have where you have friends of all ages and, you know, with all different kinds of life stories. And well, since we've been here, Ellen's been getting phone calls from her neighbors and her friends at home, and she's just a very communal person. And it is really inspiring because I think a lot of people that have the level of vision and talent and courage that Ellen has to pursue her art, I think it could be difficult to remain really, really grounded in a sense of community and integrity and love and a connection to what really matters. And so that's a beautiful thing. And I think all of that, all of who you are comes through, as much as you say, you know, it's not me, but it is, because there's a very specific interpretation that comes through that is being filtered through all of your life experiences and your unique qualities and what makes you you, instead of someone else, which is, it's so fun to celebrate. For me, I think to celebrate the uniqueness of every single person, well knowing that not one person is better than another, but we there's like a really beautiful, colorful thing that happens when we celebrate the differences of each other, because we know fundamentally there's this deep familiarity that we all share, which is kind of more that source wisdom that you can tap into. So I'm curious to talk a bit about this particular show, Waves Take Shape. And Waves Take Shape is the show that Ellen just set up. And it's one thing to send an email to a gallery to inquire, and a completely other thing to rent the U-Haul and have your partner drive and invest in the dream and make it real and really do the thing. So what is your feeling or thinking around making the decision to just say yes when the opportunity landed?
That is a great question. I think that probably goes back further than just 6 months ago. I think from the very beginning of my childhood, when you kind of become aware of things, like around 12 years old, I knew that I wanted to live a certain way, and that just not so much art, but that curiosity that I have was going to be central to my life. And I saw things that stifled people, or would stifle me if I was living the way that they were. And I decided pretty young that I was never going to have a normal job, that I was going to adventure and follow what drew me towards it. And I think being in nature from a young age, my mom took us backpacking since I was 5 years old, and she really instilled in me a trust in myself. And I think that is the key thing that allowed me to feel like I could do the things that I wanted to. And it wasn't from wanting to become famous or make a lot of money or, have all these stories about traveling the world. It was really just that pure curiosity and giving me the tools to be self-aware and aware of my surroundings in the wilderness. And then my dad, he had this little tool shop like a lot of dads do, and he never banned us from the place. He always showed us how to use the tools. He let us use his power tools from a young age. And he's kind of an inventor type. He's like a mad scientist inventor type. And so he would come up with an idea, draw it out, and then make it. And so we got to see how he went from idea to completion of his ideas. And that was an additional layer of just belief that you can do things in this world that come out of your own mind and experience. So the idea of transitioning from one thing to the next, I never am afraid of making a change in my life because something's going to happen. There's going to be something that comes about from that effort. And sending the portfolio down to the gallery and not having any expectations, really, just a desire. And then the response was beautiful from Mike in Virginia. They asked me to come down, and I always figure out how to make it happen. I did a project in New York. It was my first long distance mural project. And normally I could drive all my supplies and tools to my job sites. But this time I had to figure out how to rent an air compressor in the middle of New York City, get my paints, find a place to stay, find a storage unit, all these things I had to do from a distance. But I figured other people have done it. There's a way to do it. There's a path already made. And all the systems are there. Living in America is a very fortunate thing because we have so much at hand. There's nothing that you can't do really here. I mean, you can always figure it out. I mean, that's the idea. So my dad and I have this philosophy of life that everything's an experiment. So experiments are, we just want to try it, and failure is part of that experience. And there's actually no fear of failing. It's just not there for me at all. Yeah. Because whatever happens, then I'll do something else. Like I moved to Tokyo when I was 33 years old as an experiment. I thought I'd be there for 10 years. I was there for a month. I came back to Spokane with $100 and I just figured it out. You can always figure something out. If you have the belief, I think, given to you, sometimes that you have to have other people around you that believe in you and teach you how to believe in yourself. And then it's like riding a bike. Eventually you're doing it on your own, and hopefully then you can teach somebody else how to do that too. So it takes a lot of love. Yeah.
Oh my, that is what I'm talking about right there. This is why I do the work I do, of all the things I care about as an artist and a creator. I've for now dedicated my life to supporting people in having this self-trust that you just described. That is so rare. And this is something that actually has always had me fascinated about Ellen since I met her. Is she's so warm. When you first see Ellen, you walk into a room, this is how she greets people. Hey, she's so warm. She's so loving. And what's been very mysterious and fascinating to me over the years is, and she's got this grounded self-confidence and self-trust that is, I have noticed in our world to be incredibly rare. And especially for women. I really don't like to single out things by gender, but what I have noticed, honestly, is that it is actually kind of rare for women to really have so much self-trust that the courage is able to outweigh the fear and the self-doubt. And so I believe that when every single person puts the possibility of what could happen over the fear of what might not, you know, the best case scenario over the worst case scenario, if we could all do that and we could honestly go after the things that actually we really care about in the world would get to receive the gift of everyone's uniqueness. And what's happening for so many people is it's we got to play it safe. You got to stay in the realm of what's predictable, of what isn't too big of a risk, and the risk might be something physical or financial, or it might be emotional. Like, I'm so afraid of being judged, misunderstood, not loved. That often gets in the way of people pursuing their actual gift to the world. And so for you, you have this almost not effortless, she puts in a ton of work, but maybe like there's a flow that you move through life with this curiosity over everything else, this possibility of, and you let it be fun instead of really intense. Because I talk to a lot of people about their inner world and what is blocking them from really doing what they want to do. And for most people, it is an emotional block. It's like, I'm too afraid. I don't trust myself. I don't believe in myself. I'm too afraid that I won't be supported or that I'll fail. And the thought of failing will prevent the whole thing from moving at all. And so for you, it's like this lighthearted way of knowing that failure is actually just an inevitable part of it. And we get to not make it mean anything about our worth as a human being. So this, to me, is the difference between a person who ends up pursuing their dream or not. Because everyone is capable of something. They're born to do something, whether it's saying something, creating something, connecting something together, facilitating something. Everyone has a unique role to play in this whole tapestry of the universe. We're all one thread of a very specific color and texture. And like, when you let yourself be that, then it all gets to weave together in this beautiful way. And so it's really refreshing to hear everything you say about just letting it be. Like, there's an energy that you have about all this. I've been here all week with Ellen, and this experience could be so intense, but it's so chill. Even the day of her show, it's like we drove all around LA doing fun stuff, and it's like she's not stressed about overworking this thing. It's like letting it be fun. And at the same time, your work ethic is so apparent with the quality of the work. And so another thing that really stands out to me is while you have this very playful, curious way of existing and not taking yourself too seriously, which is really refreshing, you do take your work really seriously, and you put in a lot of extra work that I don't see that much in terms of the level of care and effort that you put in that wouldn't necessarily have to be that way, but because it means something to you. So making your own paint, making your frames so quality and unique, and everything, there's such a handmade, earthy quality that is also very next level in terms of craftsmanship and vision. And so there's this quote that I often say, which is, take yourself less seriously and take your life more seriously. And I see that in your practice. You really treat this like it matters more than anything, and yet you keep it lighthearted. So that, I think, is it allows it to be both powerful and fun. And So, one of the things that really stands out to me about the show is the handmade paint and the fact that every single painting has this story. It's not just, wouldn't this look aesthetically pleasing? And so, first of all, I'd love to hear a bit about the paint and why you choose to make your own, and the materials you choose to use. And I would also love to hear about what inspires the works. And I've had the honor of hearing some of the in-depth stories when we walked through your last show, but I haven't heard a ton about these individual works yet. But I would love to hear more about that. Okay.
Oh my gosh, you said so many things. I'm trying to listen and put little pins in. Yeah. Well, you mentioned something earlier that you have a self-confidence that you don't see in a lot of women. But I'm actually not confident. Nobody really is. And the ones that project outwardly that they're confident show their insecurities so much more, I feel. The ones that have to like make it known that they're confident. But I think the way I go through the world is knowing that everybody's a little bit shy and awkward on the inside. And so am I. And so just to make space for that. Yeah. And then if I'm awkward, that makes other people feel a little bit better about themselves and everybody's friends. Also, I try to put myself in places where I'm a little uncomfortable so that I don't stagnate or become too just the same, I guess. I really enjoy a little challenge now and then. So moving to a town of 800 people in the middle of nowhere, to Tokyo, to going to Berlin and taking the train around through Russia with my old friend, just things that are not the usual so that I can be outside of my comfort zone, and then that expands and expands. And that's why I don't know what I don't know. So you can't prepare for that. You can't worry about it. You just have to say, well, I'm ignorant of this thing. I'm not going to try to cover up that fact, and I will learn from the people that I'm with, and that, man, it's awesome to do that. Stephanie's been teaching me so much stuff. We're kind of in the same world a little bit, but I'm learning so much from being just together and listening. And sometimes we have different ideas, and and I have to stop myself and say, oh, wait a minute, put that aside and really listen to what Stephanie's saying. And there's so much wisdom in that, and it's been a growing experience, and it's been awesome. So I just want to say that.
Oh, so
yeah.
Can I just say something about that really quick? Okay. Really important that, to me, that's what confidence actually is. So I think it gets misunderstood as confidence is a feeling of some kind of bravado, but it's actually the willingness to try. It's the willingness to try, which is what you just described. So I love to point that out, because a lot of people are saying, I just wish I could be more confident, because they think it's a feeling they have to have in advance of trying something new, when really it's the getting on the train and doing the thing, even though you don't know things. That's what confidence is, because it's to say, I'll figure it out. That's a lot of, it's a confidence in yourself and in the situation and in other people that allows you to take the risk of the thing, the unknown, to get out of the comfort zone. So I want to highlight that, because the really cool thing to notice then about confidence is that it's actually a choice. We don't have to be born with it. We don't have to have anything special about us. We just get to be brave. And that's really what it comes down to.
And sometimes having a good friend by your side, you don't want to do everything by yourself. But so the materials, and taking myself not so seriously, but my work seriously. And that goes back to, where do the ideas come from? They're not mine. And so I have to give them the respect. Like those ideas are gifts. They're dreams that come, they're meditations, they're experiences that I've been given. So I want to make sure that how I treat it is with respect and not dominance. So with the materials that I use, I make paint out of the earth pigments from around our home, from bricks and bones to shells and just random objects that go into the work. I didn't make those in the beginning, so I'm just helping it transform. And a lot of artists are also very precious about their work. They worry that they do one little move and they don't want to change it, or they want it to last forever and ever. These works probably will last forever because of the materials that they're made out of. But I also know that they'll transform one day, whether it's in my studio that they transform, or they are destroyed in a fire or an earthquake, or somebody loses them in their basement. That piece, the spirit that lives within that piece will transform again and again and again, and that is eternal. That's the eternal thing. But when you bring something to life in its form that it's in, that's where I feel like I have to give the work it's the most attention. But I'm not a perfectionist. So I take care, I'm careful with the materials, and I put a lot of love into them. But I would say I'm not a perfectionist in any kind of way. Even though the works are linear, they're geometric, and they look perfect, I know when to just like let go. Yeah.
I love this so much. And that lack of perfectionism, but the abundance of the care really shines through. And I think the textures really are what gives the richness to the work. And it has to be imperfect to have the texture. There's no perfect way of doing it, if we could even define that. It's like in the variations that are created with the textures that really give that depth and that richness. So it's another important lesson in not getting in your own way as a creator, because that's another thing that really stops people from moving forward, is it's never quite perfect enough. And if it's never quite perfect enough, then nothing gets done. And then life goes by and we sit there with regret. and honestly, it's like sitting there with wins and lessons and mistakes is way better than sitting there with just a bunch of regret. And so celebrating actually the imperfection as it's actually like something decadent. It's not bad at all. You talked about where the content of the paintings come from. And I've heard you explain before that you get these visuals and these stories in your dreams and in your meditations. I would love to hear more about that. Is every single painting something that came to you in this way, like, and then you captured it and then went to work on making it something other people could see or interact with?
That's a good question. Let me think about that. I would say that the way that I work, I'll know that I want to start creating. And so I'll order the panels and the brushes, and then I move through the environment and I pick up the different materials. And then some of the dreams are dreams I had from when I was 5 years old. Some of them are from last week. Okay. So I have a journal, of course, and also I just remember them. They're almost more regular, vivid memories of my dreams than things that have happened in my life. So they're so bizarre and strange and emotional that they tend to stick in the memory a little bit better than my actual day-to-day experiences. So they're kind of with me as part of this background information through my waking life. So whatever dream is becoming more prominent, I'll start to sketch out different symbols that are associated with that dream. So the dreams are normal, like, you're flying, or you walking down a street, or you see somebody or there's a bird or a snake or something. but then I'll transform that into a symbolic image, or I will try to feel in my body how that dream made me feel. And I'll pay attention to the rhythms that are happening in my body, the way my heart is beating when I think about it, the way my stomach feels, or if I can feel the blood pumping in my arms, or if, like, when you close your eyes, you can see those different patterns. And I'll try to pay attention to that physical sensation as well as the symbolic imagery. And then that's where the abstraction kind of comes from. And I read a lot also. So there's a lot of ideas that are informed by the readings that I have used. Oh man, you're good at this. It's hard for me to give a full idea. So there's an experience I've been having as I've been using the actual materials from the environment that I live in, is understanding that consciousness or awareness or life itself is not separated between organic and inorganic matter. That consciousness resides in all matter, all atoms, whatever, down to the, electrons, protons. Everything has the potential or the elements of consciousness in it. So the abstractions kind of take us out of the, blatant messaging that we get from day to day with advertising or TV shows, to the felt experience of what that is. And the more abstract an artist goes, the closer I think that they're going to that basic source of consciousness. At some point, humans can't interpret it. It's too much. We are people that use stories to describe our world to us. So our stories, they're not wrong, but they are only at a certain level of how we can comprehend the world around us. So abstraction kind of takes us into a deeper level of that, where it's a felt experience. Like you were saying, you felt these things as you were standing in front without necessarily knowing all of the meanings behind the work. But that kind of triggers whatever it is inside our physical structure, which is also our spiritual structure. So you can only live in the so-called real world so long before you start to ask, like, what is it all about? What is this where does this come, where do these stories even come from? And then at the same time, you can't live in the abstract world all the time. That you're insane, actually, when that happens. if you are totally only in that state where your ego is gone. So you need a balance as a human being. And that's why I bring like the known symbols back into my abstract paintings, like the snake that is clearly visible in a lot of the paintings, or different symbols that are recognizable, but also transforming back into that abstraction of like the molecular level. That's
Wow. Okay. This, it's so funny because sometimes you connect so well with a person and there's so much mutual learning and exchange of ideas, and you don't even really know what's under the surface of the compatibility sometimes. And I didn't ever really make that connection between how the abstractions that you are painting are very similar to what it means to work with energy. And this is one of my, art forms, I guess you could say, is working with energy. And so I've been studying Reiki for many years, and it's understanding energy is what you're describing. And it's like I always say everything is energy. When you break everything that exists down to its most finite form, what you have is moving light. That's what we're all made of. That's what everything is made of. And so people will look at abstract art and think it's really far from reality. But what you just pointed out is that it's actually closer to it. And that the more pictorial something becomes, the more infused with our human understanding of the world that is full of story and cultural understandings, interpretations of the world, the further it is from the scientific basis of all things, which is really interesting to think about, that the more abstract something is, the more that it becomes closer to just being moving light, the more close to reality it is, but also not, because it's intangible to us. And so it when you work with energy, you almost have to you have to expand your capacity to sense the most subtle nuances in existence. It's the most subtle sensation to be able to feel energy. You have to get so quiet and you have to open up your awareness so big to really feel that you could start to work with this medium that is the space between us right here is not empty, it's full of energy. And so, yeah, so it's kind of funny because we've been talking a lot about David Lynch. And I feel like our conversation is starting to feel like something he would appreciate a lot. And so, we couldn't be in Los Angeles together without taking a moment to just honor some of what makes this place. We've been talking about it as being this heartbeat of the country when it comes to art and following your dreams and doing the bold thing and being not necessarily following the path that maybe someone else wanted to lay out for you, or doing the thing that is maybe unexpected or really, really true to yourself. And this place attracts people who do that. And that's something I really love about it. And you can really feel that. And being in the time we are now, I think it's so important to just, one of the things that separates us from being able to do the things we care about and not is how well can we navigate the duality of all things, or the multiplicity of all things, in terms of we are celebrating, I'm celebrating Ellen and her show, and I'm celebrating and incredibly grateful for the opportunity to be here with her and with our amazing partners, who this could be a whole nother episode talking about what it means to be in a truly supportive relationship, and which we both have, which is really, really cool to have found really amazing men that support us, and we're able to really all be artists, and in whatever way, whatever medium is our medium of choice right now. But there's a very real thing that came up through this whole process was this was already planned and was a really exciting thing, and then the fires happened, and it honestly, seeing that through my phone and not being here and just seeing it and knowing some of the people affected by it, and just whether you do or you don't, it really broke my heart to witness what so many people are going through here right in this moment. And it feels so incredibly overwhelming to imagine how we might continue to live our own lives, how we can potentially contribute or help in some way. How involved do we even get if it's there's so many questions that come up, and this is just one of the many tragedies that are happening around the world. And it felt really close to home when it happened. And I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, like we have to drop everything, and we have to somehow help. And I often feel like that when I see things happening. We have to be mindful of what is our role. Like, we can be aware of what's happening. And then it's like, navigating this really hard thing of caring deeply about others and feeling a part of the human collective, but then also what is our role? And this is the thing that I talk about when it comes to like knowing yourself and leading yourself, because you know, the gallery was put in a difficult position. Ellen was put in a difficult position. Everyone has been, in terms of what is my role now that this is happening and so many people aren't okay. And so I just felt like I wanted to bring this in for a moment, because another thing that really holds people back and really um, keeps us somewhat like maybe separate from each other is this feeling of either like being checked out so we can keep going and just not even bringing it up and not even addressing it, or this, oh my gosh, I have to save people. It's my job to save people. And there's this whole thing that happens where we ask the question of, am I allowed to do what I'm doing when other people are going through this, whatever that thing might be. And I know this comes up for empaths and sensitive people, which all of us creatives are. A lot of my own perceptions have been challenged since being here, in terms of I thought I was going to come here and I thought, I'm going to go to the art show, but outside of that, I'm just going to volunteer the whole time. I'm just going to really dedicate myself to somehow pitching in. But being here, it's like I realized, oh, there's a layer of this that's there's like a savior complex that can be like a bit of a weird thing when you're an empath. And I really try to be mindful of that, of like, when is it actually my place and what am I here to do and who am I here to do it with and why and all of that. And so this is why mindfulness matters so much, and having giving each other the permission to do what is needed in the whole social fabric, because there's always people that are in a position where they're needing to receive right now, and there's always the people that are needing to create, and there's always people needing to teach and to lead and to make food and to keep the world going, and the people who need to stop and heal and grieve and rebuild. And that's always going to be happening, no matter what is happening. We'll never have a time where it's just utopia and everyone's okay. Ever. It's not possible. In nature, it's not like that. So, like, I bring this up to say, I feel my heart goes out to everybody who has been negatively impacted by the fires. It is a huge deal. It's a huge deal. And being here, I really feel so much just love for all the people that are affected. And it really doesn't matter a person's economic class when it comes to a traumatic experience. It doesn't matter. Like, every human that has endured loss has endured loss. And so it's important that I think we be spreading the message of it's okay to feel what you feel, whether you're angry, sad, grieving, and also if you're in a position where you're okay right now, because we do need balance and we need harmony. So I think it's important every opportunity I get to like put out a huge signal of permission to have feelings and not have to mold and shape yourself into either you are some kind of hero or you're some kind of victim or whatever it is. We're actually all in this place of, oh gosh, like I care so much and this hurts so much and what is my role? And so can we just have so much respect for each other in knowing when it's time to give and when it's time to receive and when it's time to be occupying fully your corner of the world, whatever that might be. And some people, it's their role to pitch in right now because they can, and some people it's not, and I think that's okay too. I think what we can all add to the world is this love and respect for each other with wherever we're at. And something that inspired me was this I've been seeing a lot of people say the world needs art now more than ever. and I think that's true, because there's this soulfulness that happens when we get to have art, even when things are hard. But this is kind of one of those conversations that is impossible, because it could go on and on forever, and everyone could disagree endlessly and pitch in on right and wrong and the ways we have to be and should be. But I think the truth is just that acknowledging the fact that we can be hurting and celebrating at the same time, and living our own life while also contributing in ways that we actually can in a meaningful way, not in a like virtue signaling way, but in a real way, I think is what we all need to give each other permission to do. So I just, sitting here in the duality of all those feelings, I think it's important that we kind of create spaces to talk about that we could be celebrating a dream fulfilled, while we also are amongst, people that are enduring a lot of struggle from everything that's been going on here. And I think when these things happen, the conversations tend to get very where we are pointing fingers at each other and saying, it's because of this, and it's this and that and them. And the conversation really is only productive when we're talking about where are the solutions and how are we moving forward in harmony with the planet and each other, because that's all that really actually matters. Yeah, I don't know, do you have anything you want to add to that at all?
I think you got it.
It feels a little off topic, but I just feel like it's not, because it's definitely something that came up in the conversations of how does this change everything, and how do we navigate this, because it can feel really uncomfortable to keep going when you notice other people have had to stop. And yeah, I mean, this is going to be an open discussion. I don't have all the answers. I really think it's important that we just stay open to listening and learning how we can best support each other as we move forward in the world. And how do we still get to create and have and create beautiful, meaningful things, while moving in the direction of being more sustainable and more intentional with our resources. So these will be the ongoing conversations that I think anyone who's creating new things in the world are going to have to keep asking themselves. Lastly, the last question I want to ask you is, what would you want our listeners to take away as you had this idea of, you witnessed your dad being able to take an idea and make it real? If someone who's listening has an idea and wants to make it real, what is one piece of wisdom you would give them?
Well, I remember meeting a friend of my husband's. He hadn't seen her in a long time, and we just ran into each other. And she was having a real terrible day. She has 2 little boys who are a handful. They're cute, but man, it's hard being a parent, let alone a single parent. And she just wasn't feeling very good about her whole day and life situation. But it was her birthday. And I don't remember exactly what I said to her, but I told her that I was happy that she was here, and that, this was her year for just being in the world. And that just like and she was feeling, so she's put herself down right away, I think. And I said, you have as much right to be here as any tree or bird or whatever is alive, we all love all the living things. And we're no different than any of the other living things. And we want them to thrive. And you're worthy of being here just as much as any other living thing. We're all together. And I think that's, I don't know, yeah, you listening, if you're not feeling too good, just remember that tree out your door doesn't question whether it deserves to be alive or not. It just lives. And it keeps doing this tree thing, you know? Like, there's no question that you're here. I mean, maybe there's too many people, but you know what? They're here, and you're a human being. We're part of this earth. You got to create. Like, there's no reason to not make something. We're all the earth creating. So you're not separate from the earth. And yeah, no matter what you're making, you're the earth creating it. So just do it. Yeah, that's it.
Wow. I love that so much. That is it. We are not separate from the earth. And I think if we really took that to heart, a lot of things would make more sense. And we'd be able to create and exist with more ease, but also we'd be able to exist and create with so much more care. We all have a right to be here, just as much as a tree or a bird or a rock. And also, we have to own that we have a profound influence with what we do and what we don't do. But we are just very naturally part of something, and we know what we're supposed to do. And everything that becomes difficult is when we resist the thing we're supposed to do. So it's like an allowing, not a forcing. Yeah. Letting yourself just be in your flow state as a living creative being. So thank you so much, Ellen. I just love you so much, and I'm so grateful for this week we've spent together has been so great, and I've learned so much from Ellen and Raj, and I've been so deeply inspired and moved by Ellen's art and mostly who you are as a human. I'm curious if we should get Mike on here for 10 minutes. Thank you, Ellen. Oh, wait, where can people find you?
LowellRyanProjects.com.
Ooh, I'll put the links in the show notes to all the places people can find you.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay, great. My friends, we're doing a little pop-up surprise segment with my new friend Mike here, who owns Lowell Ryan Projects.
You got it right.
Our gallery.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I just thought, hey, I got to have him on here for a few minutes. And so, Mike, welcome to Yubu Podcast. Okay. This is a show on what it means to know, love, and lead yourself. It's about self-leadership and living authentically. And I interviewed Ellen because I think she's a perfect example of what it means to be true to yourself and go after your dreams. And your gallery here that we're sitting in this beautiful yard of is, you've dedicated yourself to supporting people with these kinds of dreams. So I'm curious to just learn a little bit about you and how it feels to run a gallery like this.
Well, I've been, there we go. I've been in the art world for about 30 years. About 30 years, okay. And I started out in New York City, having the gallery under my own name, Mike Weiss Gallery. We were on 24th Street in Chelsea. And after that, I would say 2016, the art world in the Chelsea at the time, a lot of galleries were kind of moving from that area, and there was a lot of construction. Like when, how should I say, there was a lot of building, and Hudson Yards was coming in, and there was a lot of things going on. And we decided we would take maybe a year or so off. We had a place upstate, took a little time, and kind of regrouped and decided to go to a different area. So we moved out to Los Angeles, and the gallery is actually named after my wife, Virginia, and my middle names. So it's Lowell, my middle name, and Ryan.
Oh.
And we always liked our middle names. And we thought, of course, if we're going to do something together like this, we wanted to incorporate that. And it was also good to sometimes, after a little while, losing your name kind of felt a little nice to kind of free yourself from yourself.
Yeah.
In a certain kind of way, right? So we're actually in the backyard of the gallery, which is quite beautiful. And after COVID, we were in another space for 3 years, and we moved to this place, which is kind of original Art Deco kind of building. It's 2 floors, and we wanted a place where we felt that we could have an after party or keep everybody here, instead of going somewhere else, where you can also open the door and have people just kind of go sit down and have some coffee or to have a conversation, or it's more of an experiential kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we're in Mid City, and which is not how to really explain it if you're not from here, but we're kind of the center around Los Angeles. Of course, as they say, it takes 20, 30 minutes to get everywhere in Los Angeles, but we're pretty center, and we enjoyed here, and so.
Thank you. We'll just pass this mic back and forth because I didn't know that I was going to be interviewing people. This was kind of a last minute idea. I knew I was going to record the podcast, but then I thought, well, I'm going to be here with these incredible people. I may as well rope them in on the show today. And so, so we'll just pass this back and forth. But no, because normally we'd each have one, then. But I just have the one. So, yeah. For now, it's always going to be growing and molding and moving with me. But I just had such an incredible time at the opening. You're such a good host. You have created a really, really special place here. The gallery is really unique. You allowed Ellen to paint an incredible mural in the space, and then there's this, and we had the pizza party and the drinks and so much fun. We stayed way late after the show, and there was so many great people that got to connect and come together. And so thank you for facilitating all that and being so supportive to my friend Ellen. You're obviously very dedicated to your work. And what inspired you to be this kind of support in the world for artists? Why an art gallery?
Why an art gallery? Well, I guess there could be a lot of possibly easier things to do than own an art gallery, right? I mean, I would say I wake up every day fortunate enough that I get to do something that I love, and over time you kind of find yourself as the years go on. You start to realize what you're good at, and where your maybe talent lies, and some things that you're not so good at. You find other people to handle those certain kinds of things via my wife Virginia, who's a great partner. And but with that said, talking and being with artists and being with their studios, if not their studios, FaceTiming or be on Zoom. We all work in so many different ways now because we're connected and we can see their work from in all different places at the same time. But we felt like after New York, we wanted to have it there's a lot of energy in Los Angeles, and it's kind of like the Wild West out here. Also, via no exit signs, and you could just open a gallery here. And in New York, it's like it takes you so much time just to follow all the rules. Here, it's just you can't even get an inspector to come down and look at your space, though it's safe.
Just so everyone knows.
Just so you know, it's very safe, but
just make sure this is facing
oh,
this way.
sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. It's facing the right way now. Okay. So, but I would say that we wanted to work with artists that could use someone like Virginia and I to kind of, in a way, kind of amplify voices that, someone like Ellen, who's lives in an area that, maybe could be hard to get attention of a gallery like ours or a New York gallery or something. And from doing this so long and putting so much energy into it, we definitely found that we wanted to dedicate this gallery to work with artists that could use this personal attention. And with that said, that's something that Virginia and I have been able to do very well, and not always with, how should I say, the level of rent and the overhead in New York City. Can you always make certain kinds of decisions like this because you're always thinking about, how do I pay the bills the next day? I'm not saying that Los Angeles doesn't have its own issues and its own things and fires and all different problems like anywhere else in the world. There's always some kind of Archillian battleship that wants to destroy the world or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's from Men in Black, if you don't know. But basically, I think that, when Ellen wrote out to us, and right away I saw this kind of, I felt the work deeply. I talked to her. I felt this kind of kinship with her, and I felt like this is a battle I wanted to fight. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And, I've worked with so many different artists, and sometimes you do one show with an artist. Sometimes you do, 10 shows, so you work as long as you can, if you find that connection. Sometimes artists are interesting for a certain amount of time, and sometimes galleries are also, but we feel in a certain kind of way that we like to get involved in the process. We want to be able to talk a lot. We want to get involved. And so we can have coffee together every day. Well, hopefully not every day, but we can talk enough and get involved enough that we can insert ourselves a little bit, because I think that artists need a editor. They of course, it's like making a film. If you just don't have one person, you have a whole team. But at least it's good to be able to have those conversations. We're not the kind of gallery where you're just going to, okay, we have a show, you just bring it down or we ship it down, and we're not involved in the process. But in this case, Ellen had an idea for this show, and with the mural and everything that she had showed me is exactly the way it is in the space. And I would say, because she, very different than a lot of artists where the work, they do have their idea, but then it comes down there and it changes. Maybe because we have a natural feeling for the space because we understand our space. But Ellen has a great understanding of space, mm-hmm. Which I don't see so often. So it's exactly how Ellen wanted it there. Mm. Everything is put in the place, and she did that on the computer first and was able to show. I mean, it looks like it was like my installation.
Well, it's very cool that you, first of all, can see and feel that kind of potential and establish a sense of trust, and then just let her go, and with so much trust. And also the amount of effort I saw from you of amplifying, her voice out into the bigger art scene right away, like just out there. And I kept seeing her pop up on 13 things to do in LA this week, and 10 artists to be watching, and
Archillian magazine, Curated LA, and she was getting all these kind of, what to do this weekend, critics pick, this kind of thing. But also when we sending things out over the years, we've had such a kind of not only following, but we also send out to all the different dealers and European dealers and art fairs and consultants and not only collectors, but artists. And so we're, of course, you know, times are changing and you have to realize that we're showing work in this day and age where you have to be able to give people an understanding of the space, how you move through the space. On our Instagram, it's how people look nowadays, you know, and of course we have our website and everything like that, but we have to spend a lot of time to make sure if people can't be here. You know what I mean? And this is a difficult time right now with all the fires going on and everything, and a lot of it, which is a little more under control, though more winds are coming. But I thought it was important that a show like this from Ellen happen and take place. We just want to make sure when she drove in, she took the right course, you know, on the way here. But it's been amazing having her here. And it's beautiful right now outside, and it's luckily we're in an area that's not it's found itself in this kind of difficulty, but you know, we're just happy to have her. She's a great positive person. So are you also.
Thank you so much. I think it's really important to have people like you in the world who have the mission of being it's a different thing to be a gallery that only features people that already have a big name compared to say, wow, this person needs to be noticed because the work they're creating is incredible. So let us be, you know, a way for the world to know them. And that's what you are doing here. And that's very, very cool. And it's definitely not the easier path, but it's it's a very passionate path to be on. And I think creators of all kinds, we need people in our corner like that who are willing to say, I know it's going to be a little more work to get your work out into the world, but it's worth it. You're worth it. Your work is amazing. And I see that. And let's help other people see it too. And so thank you for being the kind of person in the world who's willing to be such a vital part of not just the art world at large, because discovering new talent is so important, but also, you know, it matters so much to every individual that gets a chance to be kind of, you know, Ellen's been doing this for over 20 years and she's incredibly talented and she has made a name for herself in the mural world, but the gallery world is completely different. And so
I think that also what is in Ellen's corner, which is really great, is that not everybody is receptive also in, because it's like the dating process in a way, right? We start talking, we get to know each other, we see the work, we're back and forth on emails or on FaceTime or whatever, but the process not always goes to the finish line, right? Yeah. Because like in the dating process, you decide maybe you can't work together or you can, and we like to see this back and forth. And we usually send, let's say, like a letter of intent or something showing that, okay, we're interested, but still in this path. Sometimes when people get something like this, they're confused. And what it does say is like how we work as a gallery, right? And not everybody is always can, how should I say, who haven't been working, let's say, with galleries and been working on their own can kind of rightly kind of understand what you're talking about. And it always kind of separates people and allows us to know who we can work with. It's almost like our little test in a way, but it's kind of like what our consignment is in the end with an artist, which kind of works to protect both people, but at the same time, Ellen is just a very receptive person and very good energy,
Mm-hmm.
but also she's someone who looks at everything, considers everything, and we felt that working with her, we knew, like you said, everything's going to take some time, because now collectors not only want to buy something they love, but they're like, is it going to go up in value? Is it going to do this? Is it going to do that? They less and less want to do studio visits. They want to be able to. They get their PDF, and everybody right away wants the same piece on the first PDF, right? And then you got to say, well, maybe you can't always have exactly what you want, but it felt very comfortable for us in a battle we wanted to fight. And, even though she's been doing along, like you said, she's kind of emerging in the scene, but a lot of women artists, even though there's a big platform for women artists out there, oftentimes it happens in a kind of way where the artist is already getting a certain amount of attention, right? And sales are happening. They have the collectors and different things. I mean, luckily for Ellen, there's galleries that are calling in. There's collectors that are calling in. There's a lot of interest. It's exciting, so we're very happy. And I think, again, the right time to have a show like this with such great kind of energy, and the aspect of the spirituality in her work, which is, we are in California, of course, and stuff like that. But, I would say that there's a kind of dialogue that she plays with in her work that you feel like you move into the work, because even though you're using your sensibility, you're kind of comparing it to the things but you're able to kind of be brought in very fast and kind of feel them kind of deeply in a way that I feel sometimes I don't want to have to read a book report about the art before I see it. You know what I mean? And there's this kind of insider outsider kind of quality to it, because the materials that she uses, and there's just a special way that she does things that doesn't feel so over processed, like it's made for the internet. You know what I mean? Though they shoot really nicely, I have to say. So, which is great. But of course, going onto her website and seeing all the pictures and everything, you really get a feeling that that Ellen's, an installation artist, because, of your mural work and everything, she just has a great understanding of the space in her works and the space around it. I think that when you walk in the show, you feel that, and I guess she's trying to create a energy in the room and a kind of meter, a kind of rhythm that as you move through it, which is quite exciting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, we talked a bit already about the feeling of her work, and it's very, I think this is a perfect show to be having at this time in LA, when there's a lot of, there's just a lot of grief and I'm sure fear and things being experienced by a lot of people. And of course, we're sending out so much love to everybody who's going through difficult things. And I think that she's the perfect artist right now, because she really does have a heart of gold. She really cares deeply about people, and her work is very grounded in a sense of humanity. And there's a rawness to the materials, and the textures feels very human and very earthy and grounded, and almost like there's imbued in her art, almost feels like this ancient wisdom, ethereal quality to it too, where it's almost limitless and timeless and imaginative. And so it really feels like both grounded and hopeful. And I think that's kind of we need to be connecting to that kind of soulful energy right now. And so
just to say something about fires and everything is, and not to make light of anything, of course, whatever in the art world, it's been amazing to see out in L.A. how many people have opened up their galleries to all different kinds of things for clothing, for supplies, for, just educating people on where to go and to get help or grants or for artists. But also what's also powerful is the notion that we are open for business and we have a responsibility to our artists to keep moving forward. And something with COVID was that this kind of people kind of were stopped in their track, closing their doors, going home. Even though we were constantly putting up shows, even if, of course, people making appointments, coming in one-on-one and masked and looking at things. And even though this was a very costly endeavor, of course, to have to keep it open during all that time. But it's very important, learning from the lessons of that is to show people that, and most of the galleries are not in these kind of areas, but it's important to not just shut your doors, but you have artists that need paychecks. Their art world needs to keep moving, and movement in a way is kind of life in that kind of way through anything you're kind of doing. And we try to show, it's important to show our artists that we are going to keep on doing shows. In fact, this was very, how should I say, took a lot of energy to put this show together. And, it's always a team, effort in the end. But I think that if anything we could say about this kind of thing is that through all different kinds of episodes that are extremely difficult, if you have that opportunity, it's important to support the artists that you have by moving forward. And sometimes it's very difficult to do that. You feel like, well, who's going to buy the art? Who's going to, especially when such a large part of California has had problems. But we're fortunate that that we have such a great show. And if you're from here or you're not from here, you have to take a look at our show, and hopefully it's going to do for us what it does for you, is to kind of give you almost this feeling of like I feel like it's like a dream within a dream, this show, it's quite extraordinary. So we're very excited.
Yeah.
And we're glad to have you here down also.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for just being so open and willing to just pop right on the podcast without warning and say some words. It means a lot to me, and it's been so great to get to know you. And I'm so grateful that you are continuing to move forward and be really, really dedicated to your work and supporting artists in the world. And I think this is the thing I keep connecting to is, in hard times and times of tragedy, we can easily get sucked into despair and, like you said, closing the doors and going home. And I think everyone plays an important role. We have to know what our role is and keep continuing to look towards solutions, and love is the way. Like, just keep looking to solutions instead of looking to problems. And the solution for a lot of us is keep moving forward with the commitments you've made to the people you've made them to. This energy of the show, grounded in this feeling that kind of transcends some of the heartache of the human experience. It's abstract, and it makes you feel something that you can't quite describe. But I think a lot of people have the same experience when they're looking at it, and so it kind of cuts through a lot of that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, it's just on any note, is that when Ellen was giving us, oftentimes, we ask the artists for all different information about their works and maybe other press releases or writings, or she also has her poetry and all this kind of stuff. which is included in the press release and in other places. But to really kind of understand the artist also, and even moving through things, is especially someone who's been doing their work for quite a while, is to kind of go in there and make sense of what is important for these kind of works. And also that sometimes the artist has a big repertoire, like a dictionary of things, like of marks and of symbols, and they can, over time, they can build. And for Ellen, maybe it should be a book at one point. It's pretty amazing. But without all this, when you can move into a work, and again, you can make these kind of connections culturally through different symbols, from Mexican tiles to this, outsider artwork, to all these different kinds of elements, and then leave that all alone and just feel it deeply without anything, is pretty amazing. And her work does that. But with that said, what's exciting now is this is just not even, we had the opening, but we haven't even had the first day of the show. So it's up through February 15th. And so there's a long time. So if you're out there or not too far away, please come by or look at it online, or just, email us and tell us you're watching us and seeing what's going on. And for everybody out there that's going through those hard times, just come by for like a place to get away from things and to, just be in the moment. And sometimes we just kind of need that. And somewhat this garden back here is for that. So not only you could see this show, but then walk around, you could see it behind us a little bit, but just to kind of, sometimes people just go and open up a book, or we make them some coffee or hang out. And there's no front desk where you feel like, we're superior than anybody when they walk in, right? We just wanted for people to feel kind of open without the snobbery, and Virginia and I, my wife and I, are always kind of here, which we think is, we don't let someone else sit there to do our work. We want to be here to meet people and to educate them with the work, but also, I always find it interesting when the gallery owners are the people, and then they hide themselves in the back away from the public. And, everybody's important that comes in and makes that kind of journey in that way. So.
Thank you so much, Mike. I really felt that. I feel so comfortable here. Since the moment I walked in, you really do have a warm, welcoming presence, and it's very professional, but it's very grounded and down to earth and friendly and kind. So yes, come and see the show if you are close to, we're in Mid City, and I will post where to find you in the show notes. Okay. And so thank you so much for coming on to the show, and for allowing us to use your beautiful garden as the podcast studio today. What an amazing way that this all worked out, and I'm so grateful. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you for listening. That was Ellen Picken and Mike, representing Lowell Ryan Projects Art Gallery here in Los Angeles. And today, I really wanted to highlight this idea of moving forward with dreams, with courage and trust, and with the duality of what is happening at any given time in the world. It's never going to feel easy necessarily to pursue your brave, bold dreams. And so ultimately, with yourself about what your role is at any given time in the world, and to completely step into that. and know that no one has to give you permission. You get to trust your own soul, your own heart, your own knowing, and surround yourself with supportive community as best as you can. You'd be surprised how easy it becomes when you really open up to the fact that people do want to be together. I've really experienced such a sense of community since I've been here, and it's beautiful. It's all happened so fast, and it's easy. There are so many people that feel similarly and who are completely different and still come together with so much community and collaboration and love and shared vision. And so this has been You Boo Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Sauvé-Bogue. Thank you for listening. I'm so grateful that you're here. Please send in any questions that you might have, and I can dedicate a future episode to answering your questions. I would love to do that. So have a beautiful day.